Welcome back to week 2 with the cast of The Alienist. I'm Bill Keith from Entertainment Weekly, and I've got all your questions that the cast is going to answer about what to expect from the rest of the season. We have the cast here. We have Daniel Brühl, Dakota Fanning, and Luke Evans, and we have another exclusive clip for you. The first fan question that came in for each of you was, what was the favorite characteristic about your character that really drew you in?
I think for me, the first scene where we meet Sara, she is biting and very quick. And the way that scene is written, you know a lot about her, and that she's not sort of a wallflower and speaks her mind and isn't afraid to, even though she's seen as less than to the people that she's speaking to in these times. You see her kind of overcoming that and pushing those boundaries right away.
I guess in my case, it would be his humanity, that he's a humanistic guy who knows that evil, for example, lies within all of us, and it just depends on the circumstances. So he's a privileged guy who was born into a wealthy family, like John Moore and Roosevelt, etc., and Sara Howard. But he's aware of what people are going through, and he takes care of these victims. And even with the killer, he tries to see the human being behind these vicious crimes. And I guess I would say, him being a humanistic man, that's what I liked about the character.
How about you?
The words that come to mind that describe more to myself would be an idealistic, sensitive, hopeless romantic. He sees everything as it should be, but it's never as it is. And he thinks he's doing the right thing quite often to Sara, quite often, and it's completely the opposite to what she wants or requires from him. He struggles. He's old school in a way. I guess he's not so much the modern man that everyone might think he is. But yeah, he's a hopeless romantic who wears his heart on his sleeve, and it's broken it. He's broken his heart, yeah.
So I already asked you what you admire most or most drawn to in your characters, and the other question that came up a lot on Twitter was, what do you find you have the most in common with your characters? Why don't we start with you, Luke?
What? Why me? Oh, God. Well, I guess I'm a hopeless romantic,
I was going to say, that's what I would say, yeah.
She knows me very well. Yeah, I'm probably a hopeless romantic.
It's not the worst thing to have in common with that guy. There are other traits
traits
that you wouldn't necessarily want to see in yourself.
True. I do like an Aperol Spritz every now and again.
For me, I would say the quick tongue, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I should say strength or, something like that, which I also think is true. But yeah, maybe the biting tongue at times.
There's some incredible lines in this show. Cutting to the bone and through them, literally. They're wonderful. And she delivers them with such panache. There must be some Dakota in there somewhere.
Somewhere.
Dug so deep to find them.
Yeah, they're wonderful.
I guess I can be sometimes a bit obsessive. So that obsession of Kreizler's and that annoying seriousness that I sometimes have, that I, find myself in a loop, and then, and I know it annoyed my colleagues as well when I was in that state. And I remember Dakota saying to me, "Stop that negativity," So yeah, I guess this is something that this guy
biting tongue with the biting tongue, right?
Well, it's always good to work with perfectionists because they never stop looking for perfection, and that just elevates everyone else around Daniel. And I felt that working with you. So,
do you have a favorite set piece that you love filming on the most? be it your study or your office or one of the brothels. I mean, you go all over to every high and low spot in the city. Do you have any favorite set pieces that you just loved working on?
Oh, my whole house.
Oh, God, yeah.
I was so sad to move out after 6 months. I just love that place. I mean, when is that the case, that they're building a whole house for you? And they did it again with so much, passion and detail. I mean, probably it would be the living room of my house. Mm-hmm.
I developed a soft spot for the police department building. It was the first set that I filmed on in my very first scene. And it wasn't that it was the most comfortable of sets. There were sort of open areas that would become very cramped very quickly and sort of narrow hallways, and my office was quite tight. So I'm sentimental about it, I suppose. But it was a found building in Budapest, an actual location, and it's called the BAV building.
And mine, I think, because we shot in it so many times and in so many seasons of the year within the story, was the opera house. I mean, Daniel touched on it earlier, but it is one of the most exquisite interiors of an opera house. It's quite small, but it's so ornate, and we filled it with 1896 echelons of society with their fans and their dresses and their hats. And then we did a night scene outside where we covered all the streets with cobblestone, gas-lit lamps, had horses and carriages, policemen, urchins. And I mean, I have that opera house has probably lived through that time. That's why it was so amazing, is this, we're using if the opera house could talk, like, oh, I remember this time when those horses used to go by.
A lot of people on Twitter are asking, was there anything that you learned in doing this and in a production that's so historically exacting that surprised you about sort of the Gilded Age era of New York City?
I remember, because a big part of the story is, that we have the two Isaacson brothers who are work at the police department, and they're played by Matt Shear and Douglas Smith, and they are sort of introducing these forensics to us, like we saw in that clip at Delmonico's. And I remember reading the script, and there was a line in there at one point that my character said about a finger mark, and isn't it surmised that one's born with a set and it never changes over one's lifetime? And I was like, yeah, it is surmised that that's true. And just realizing that all of that, of course, had to be discovered, and this was the time period that it was discovered, and how could you have caught anyone unless you caught them red-handed committing a crime without the use of these forensics? And just seeing them introduced, albeit in a fictional way, but it has to be, there was a real scene, real time, real people who were making these discoveries, and those are just things that we so take for granted now. So that was a moment that I was totally confronted with, like, a discovery in this time period, and so I was fascinated by that one.
Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. Guys, thank you so much for this Q&A. Everyone can tune in to The Alienist on Monday nights at 9, 8 Central on TNT. But before we go, I'd like to show a clip. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
We've been up all night, Laszlo. I would prefer the opportunity to sleep and collect my thoughts.
Well, the impression is fresh. We must take advantage.
I assure you, the impression of a poor boy slaughtered like an animal will remain fresh, if not indelible.
Yes. It is slaughter. They've been led to slaughter.
Those last few moments must have been terrorizing.
Is the child's terror essential to the killer's experience?
Laszlo, please.
Only on the assumption that there's some meaning to his actions.
Yes. Certainly a beggar is motivated to steal a piece of bread because he's hungry, but why does our killer do what he does?
We all must be held accountable regardless of our misfortunes.
I'm not speaking about accountability. I'm speaking about empathy, about understanding.
Understanding? The man murders children for pleasure.
This might help you to put yourself in his place.
The very notion fills me with loathing. I'm quite sure a book will not change my mind.
Then ask yourself why you seek the companionship of strangers. Because you enjoy it? Or are you solving a wound? Your broken engagement, your father's disapproval, your brother's death.
Whatever I'm doing, I'm not butchering children.
This fixation on boys. Perhaps he's reliving a physical or emotional trauma. Miss Howard, how did you cope with your father's suicide?
Sarah, that does not require a response.
John indulges himself with drink. What do you do?
Kreizler, that's quite enough!
Miss Howard, if she wants to be of aid here, must confront her feelings because we all, in some manner, protect ourselves from psychological and emotional pain by taking action to craft fantasies of revenge, of power, of sexual gratification. So what is it, Miss Howard? What is your opiate?
This is insufferable. Come on, Sarah. We don't have to listen to this.
Go on then. Both of you. And come back when you're able to look inside yourselves.
The Alienist, only Mondays at 9 on TNT. And watch anytime on demand and on the TNT app. Catch up on The Alienist and stream episode 1 with no sign-in at thealienist.com.